Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to be analyzing Lucid Group
Okay.
and what a second Trump presidency might mean
Yeah.
for this luxury EV
Yeah.
maker.
Yeah.
You know, this is a company at a fascinating crossroads with the potential for both explosive growth and some pretty serious obstacles.
It's a pivotal time for the entire EV sector, but particularly for a company like Lucid, that's targeting a very specific high-end customer.
Yeah,
The political winds have shifted,
for sure.
and that's going to create some ripple effects we need to consider.
Absolutely. Let's start with what some are calling the Trump effect.
Okay.
One of the biggest changes on the horizon is the likely rollback of EV mandates.
Yeah.
Could this actually be a good thing for Lucid?
Right.
Less competition? Might sound appealing on the surface.
But there's a flip side to that coin.
Yeah.
While fewer mandates might mean traditional automakers shift their focus away from EVs.
Okay.
Removing that $7,500 federal tax credit could impact even Lucid's affluent customer base.
Yeah.
It really depends on whether that credit was like a driving factor in their purchasing decision.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
Are buyers choosing Lucid for its luxury status?
Yeah.
For environmental reasons?
Right.
Or a mix of both?
Mm-hmm.
How much does that tax credit really matter to someone who's in the market for a high-end EV?
What's fascinating here is that this potential shift could push Lucid even further into that luxury niche.
Okay.
They might need to double down on what makes them unique and desirable.
Right.
To a buyer who isn't swayed by a few $1,000s. Think exclusivity, cutting-edge tech, and a brand image that just screams luxury.
So maybe this policy shift kind of forces them to play to their strengths.
Yeah.
Almost like it lights a fire under them to innovate and stay ahead of the curve.
Right.
But let's not forget about the elephant in the room, tariffs.
Absolutely. Trump's proposed tariffs on automotive components from Mexico and Canada are a significant factor.
Yeah.
We're talking potential duties of up to 25%.
Wow.
Which would directly impact Lucid's production costs.
That's a hefty chunk of change, and it makes you wonder if Lucid can still achieve those ambitious delivery targets. Is it even feasible to scale up production with that kind of financial pressure?
That's where things get really interesting.
Okay.
These tariffs could actually push Lucid towards investing more heavily in U.S. manufacturing.
Ah, so there's a potential silver lining.
Right.
Trump's Made in America campaign could end up benefiting Lucid.
Yeah.
Is it far-fetched to think that they might receive favorable government incentives?
In that Made in America narrative.
Right.
It could provide a huge boost in terms of public perception and investor confidence.
Right.
But we need to be realistic about the immediate challenges, too.
Okay.
Those tariffs are going to increase production costs in the short term.
Right.
And there's a very real risk of supply chain disruptions.
Yeah, it's a high-stakes game for sure. Lots of risks and a lot of potential rewards.
Yeah.
So let's bring this down to brass tacks.
Okay.
How is Lucid actually performing right now from a purely financial perspective?
So as of December 27th, 2024, Lucid is trading at $3.21 a share.
Okay.
That's a slight dip from the previous day, but we also need to consider the broader context. Over the past year, the stock has been pretty volatile.
Yeah.
Swinging between, $1.93 and 43 cents.
I've been watching the ticker, and it's been a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
You never quite know which direction it's going to go in next.
No,
What about their most recent earnings report?
Sure.
Any news there for investors?
Unfortunately, their recent earnings report wasn't exactly a home run.
Yeah.
They posted a loss of $1.33 per share.
Okay.
And their PE ratio is sitting at -2.41.
Ouch.
Yeah.
That's got to sting.
Yeah.
But what about their market cap?
Right.
Isn't it still hovering around like $9.64 billion?
You're right. There seems to be a disconnect between their financial performance and their market cap.
Yeah.
On one hand, they're struggling to turn a profit.
Right.
But on the other hand, investors seem to see potential for growth.
Okay.
Perhaps even betting on Lucid's ability to navigate these choppy political waters and come out on top.
That's a bold bet.
It is.
And I'm curious to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
But we also can't ignore the fact that the overall EV market is projected to experience significant growth. U.S. electric car sales are expected to jump by 20% in 2024 alone.
Absolutely. And this is where Lucid's focus on the luxury EV segment could be their saving grace.
Right.
Think about it as the market gets flooded with more affordable options. Lucid's niche positioning might be what allows them to stand out and attract those high-end buyers who are less sensitive to price fluctuations.
So what we have here is a company facing some serious financial challenges, but also operating in a market that's primed for growth. And they've carved out a unique position for themselves, targeting a specific segment that might be immune to some of the broader economic pressures.
Exactly. It raises a lot of questions. Can they actually scale up production to meet those ambitious delivery targets? Can they maintain their luxury appeal in the face of rising production costs? Can they capitalize on the Made in America narrative?
Lots of cans and lots of question marks. It's a fascinating case study. And one that we'll be following closely.
Absolutely.
What are your initial thoughts on this?
Sure.
Is Lucid on track for success, or are they headed for trouble? What stands out to you as the biggest factor at play here?
What stands out to me is this idea that regulatory changes could actually end up benefiting Lucid in the long run. It sounds counterintuitive, but sometimes a little adversity can, force a company to innovate and adapt in ways they might not have otherwise.
It's like the old saying, necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly.
If Lucid is forced to overcome these challenges, it might make them a stronger and more resilient company in the long run.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, it's not just about Lucid. The entire EV sector is going through a period of intense change and adaptation. The Biden era focused on pushing EVs into the mainstream with incentives and regulations. Now, with Trump back in office, the focus seems to be shifting toward domestic manufacturing and a more protectionist approach to trade.
So instead of go green, it's more like buy American.
Exactly. And that shift could have some unintended consequences. For example, those tariffs we discussed earlier could make it harder for foreign automakers to compete in the U.S. market. This could create an opening for a company like Lucid, especially if they can ramp up domestic production.
It's almost like a game of chess with all these different players making strategic moves and anticipating their opponent's reactions.
That's a great analogy. And right now, Lucid seems to be holding some pretty interesting cards. They've got a strong luxury brand image. They're focusing on a segment of the market that's less sensitive to price fluctuations. And they have the potential to become a key player in that Made in America EV narrative.
But we can't get ahead of ourselves. They still need to prove they can execute on their vision. They need to hit those production targets and demonstrate that they can navigate these supply chain challenges effectively. What stands out to you as their biggest hurdle right now?
For me, it boils down to execution. They have a compelling vision and a promising product. But can they deliver on their promises? Can they scale up production? Get those cars to market efficiently and do it all while maintaining that luxury edge? That's the multi-billion-dollar question.
It's like having all the ingredients for a Michelin star meal. But you still need a skilled chef.
Exactly.
So bring it all together. And execute the recipe flawlessly.
Precisely. And that's what makes this whole situation so fascinating to watch. Lucid is in a high-stakes game with a lot of potential for both success and failure. The outcome is far from certain, which is what makes it so compelling for investors and industry observers alike.
Let's zoom out a bit. And consider the broader EV landscape. We've got this projected 20% growth in U.S. electric car sales in 2024. And all these new players entering the market, all vying for a piece of the pie. Where does Lucid fit into all of this?
Right.
How do they position themselves
right.
amidst this increasing competition?
That's where their niche focus becomes even more crucial. As the overall market expands, it's going to get more and more crowded.
Right.
You'll have your affordable EVs for the mass market, your family-friendly SUVs, your high-performance sports cars, all vying for different segments of the consumer base.
But not so many luxury EVs.
Right.
Is that where Lucid has an opportunity to carve out a strong position?
They're not trying to be everything to everyone.
Right.
They're targeting a specific type of buyer.
Right.
One who's looking for something unique, something aspirational,
Right.
and something that sets them apart from the crowd.
That's like the difference between a department store and a high-end boutique.
Right.
You go to the boutique when you want something special,
Uh-huh.
something with craftsmanship
Yeah.
and exclusivity.
That's a great analogy.
Yeah.
Lucid is trying to evoke that same feeling of exclusivity and luxury with their cars. They want to be the Tesla of the luxury market.
Right.
But the question remains, can they pull it off?
Yeah.
Can they establish themselves as the go-to brand for discerning buyers who want a high-end EV experience?
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, from the potential impact of the Trump administration to the projected growth of the EV market.
Right.
And Lucid's position within this evolving landscape.
Absolutely.
What do you think, listeners?
Yeah.
Is Lucid a company that's piqued your interest? Are you bullish or bearish on their prospects?
It's a high-risk, high-reward scenario. That's for sure.
Right.
And that's what makes the stock market so compelling. There's always an element of uncertainty, leap of faith.
Yeah.
But that's also where the potential for significant returns lies.
As they say, fortune favors the bold.
Right.
But it's also important to be informed.
Yes.
And to carefully consider the risks before making any investment decisions.
What I find particularly intriguing about the EV market is that it's not just about technology or economics. It's also deeply intertwined with politics, social values, and even our sense of identity.
Interesting.
The decisions we make about the cars we drive are often reflections of our values and our aspirations.
You're right. The Buy American sentiment, that's likely to gain momentum under the Trump administration. Could play right into Lucid's hands.
Absolutely.
If they can successfully position themselves as the patriotic choice in the luxury EV market.
It's a powerful narrative.
It is.
And one that savvy investors will be watching closely.
So with all these factors at play, how do we make sense of Lucid's prospects in the Trump era?
Right.
It seems like there are a lot of potential scenarios at play.
Lucid is undoubtedly at a crossroads. They're facing some real challenges in terms of profitability and production.
Right.
But they're also operating in a market that's experiencing explosive growth.
Right.
They've got a unique brand identity. That could give them a significant advantage as the competition heats up.
I feel like we've only scratched the surface here.
Yeah.
There's so much more to explore when it comes to
absolutely
the EV market as a whole,
right?
And the impact of the changing political landscape on this industry.
It's a constantly evolving story.
It is,
and that's what makes it so fascinating to follow.
So to wrap things up,
sure.
Would you say Lucid is a buy, a hold, or a sell in this new era? What's your expert opinion?
That's the $1 million question, isn't it?
It is.
And honestly, there's no easy answer.
Yeah.
It all depends on your individual investment goals, your risk tolerance, and your outlook on the EV market as a whole.
It's like you said earlier, fortune favors the bold.
Right.
But you also need to be smart about it.
Yeah.
Do your research, assess the risks, and decide if Lucid aligns with your overall investment strategy.
I think the key takeaway here is that Lucid is a company worth watching closely.
Okay.
There's a lot of potential upside, but also some significant risks to consider.
We've given you a lot to digest today.
We have.
From the ins and outs of Lucid's financials to the broader trends shaping the EV market.
Right.
Now it's time for you to do your own due diligence.
Yeah.
Dig into those earnings reports. Look at their production targets.
Right.
Compare them to their competitors.
Exactly.
And then decide for yourself,
yeah.
is Lucid a company you'd bet on?
It's going to be a fascinating journey, that's for sure.
Yeah.
This is a company that could either soar to new heights or stumble and fall.
It's a high-stakes game.
It is.
And we'll be here to cover every twist and turn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Be sure to tune in next week for another episode of Investing Talk Podcast.
And in the meantime, we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on Lucid? Are you bullish or bearish on their prospects? Share your insights in the comments section below.
Don't forget to subscribe to Investing Talk Podcast so you don't miss an episode.
Yes.
And if you found this discussion insightful, please share it with your friends and fellow investors.
Absolutely.
Until next time, happy investing.